Hey, girlfriend. I am so happy you stopped by today because you are in for a really great episode. Today, we are chatting with Ellie Weinstein. So, Ellie actually doesn't live that far from me. I live in Jersey and Ellie lives in Queens, New York. But, like how I meet many of my guests, Ellie actually reached out to me on Instagram. So, I'm going to read you guys really quick the message that Ellie sent me on Instagram. All right, here we go. Quote, love this podcast and the concept. I was recently on Kelly Clarkson talking about being a new dad and also as a therapist and how I navigate the stresses and emotions of being a parent. Would be so honored to be a guest and talk about being a father and parent from a therapist perspective, mental health, men's issues, and everything in between. End quote. So, of course, this message caught my attention because I was like, hold up, you were on the Kelly Clarkson show? And then I pulled my somewhat professional self back together and thought, wow, what an amazing opportunity to talk about mental health and the importance of therapy. So, I haven't been very vocal yet about my journey with therapy, but I have in fact been seeing a therapist since last November, mostly for my anxiety, which you guys know I've been open about on the show. Initially, I felt a lot of shame about going to therapy because I was brainwashed by that horrible stigma that something needs to be terribly wrong with you to go to therapy. Clearly, this is a huge misconception that unfortunately hinders a lot of people from seeking a therapist, and that is why you are listening to this episode today. I believe every single person, no matter your story, can benefit from talking to someone who has an objective perspective on your life. Having Ellie on the show was such a blessing because he provides a drastically different perspective of therapy that makes it relatable and less intimidating. I genuinely enjoyed my chat with Ellie so much because he is so easy to talk to and because he shares really great nuggets of knowledge as to why and how therapy can help anyone. So during the show, I talk about my journey with therapy. Ellie talks about his therapy journey. And of course, we talk about the Kelly Clarkson show. This is one of my favorite episodes to date because it is so raw and personal. And I believe these intimate conversations are the biggest catalysts to change. This is the story of Ellie Weinstein. Okay, please state your name and what you do.
Hi, my name is Ellie Weinstein, and I am a psychotherapist.
Where did you grow up? Paint a picture for me of the neighborhood that you grew up in.
I grew up in a small town in Long Island called North Belmore. Not a lot of life there for our family, so we ended up moving to another town that was a little bigger called West Hempstead, where my family still lives for the past 22 years.
Are you an only child or do you have any siblings?
I have one older brother who is 6.5 years older than me.
Okay. What characteristics would you use to describe yourself as a child?
Very curious. I like to get into everything, take things apart, learn how they work.
Mhm.
Full of life, energy, and a little mischievous.
Great. What did you dream of being when you grew up?
I went through my phases of wanting to be a police officer, a firefighter. I really wanted to be in the medical world. I wanted to be a doctor so badly, and then learned over the years that I didn't have the chops for it. So I went into the psych world, a little different route, but still working with people.
So, after high school, what was your plan for life? Was therapy at that point in your life even on the radar?
Yeah, I really love people. I love connecting with people. I love talking to people. I'm a people person. If you put a face on a wall, I can probably talk to that wall
Mm hmm.
for hours.
Mm hmm.
So it is something that has been in me for many years, and it was just about guiding my passion towards something specific.
So describe to me that pivotal moment that you realized you wanted to be a therapist.
I don't know if it was one moment per se, but it was a moment when I noticed the effect I had on people, um, by just caring and giving them love and listening and connection. That I thought to myself, the feeling that I had inside of me, yes, I know it's not going to be every day. I know it's not going to be all the time, but it's something that I love and something that I want to do for the rest of my life.
That's great. Okay, so those were the first sets of questions. So now we'll get into
Love
the
these questions.
remainder. I know, aren't they fun?
They're great.
Thank you. So now we'll get into the remainder of the episode. Okay.
Sure.
So, Ellie, I am so excited that you are here on the Cultivating Curiosity podcast. I cannot wait to share your story with everybody. And you are a psychotherapist. You are my first psychotherapist on the show, and I am really excited. I know we were talking about this before I even hit the record button, that we
Hmm.
need to get the word of therapy out there and to eliminate that stigma and to talk about how it can benefit our lives. So
Yeah.
let's backtrack a little bit into your life and your story and describe to me the very first time you went to therapy. What was that like? I'm curious.
So the first time I went to therapy, I was a kid. I was 8 or 9 years old, struggling with my social skills, struggling with my behavior. Not that I was a bad kid, I was just so much energy all over the place. I was the classic ADHD child. Emotional, energy, excitement, but also I struggled in school, making friends, and struggling with a lot of things in my life. And I went to a psychiatrist at the time. And back in the day, psychiatrists would see you for, let's say, half an hour, 4 or 5 minutes, medication, and would do therapy. That has changed drastically because of insurances and many different factors. But that was my first experience. I felt scared and I felt weird. I felt like I
Okay.
was a something was really wrong with me,
Hmm.
that I needed someone to help me. I felt something was wrong with me.
Yeah, right. That's that stigma that I talked about earlier that
Yeah.
people have around therapy. And I know I was opening up to you a little bit before the show, but I'm actually in therapy for the first time in my life, and I've been in it only for a few months.
Hmm.
And I felt the same way. I felt scared. I felt out of my body. And most importantly, I felt a lot of shame around going to therapy because
Yeah.
society puts in your mind if you have to go to a therapist, something is drastically wrong with you.
100%.
And when in reality, there are so many people that go to therapy, so many people that clearly there's not anything drastically wrong with them, but those people don't talk about it. So, what
Yeah.
you see in society are those people that are, severely depressed or have severe mental illnesses that are in therapy. So, that's what you associate therapy with. And that's not the accurate picture whatsoever, but that's what I had going into it. So I remember
Hmm.
my first therapy session literally just out of control sobbing because I felt shameful.
Yeah.
She was like, so tell me a little bit about your life. Where did you grow up? I'm like, I grew up in Indiana. I was literally so out of control, but it was, thank God it's gotten a little more stable over the past few
Yeah.
sessions.
Good.
Oh my God. So let's dive in a little bit to the stigma around therapy. So I was on your website and I
Hmm.
was watching your videos, and I love your videos, by the way.
Thank
And
you.
one of your videos, I think it said something so powerful, and you say, and I'm paraphrasing this, that
Yeah.
society groups a single word into a very large overarching bucket. So what I mean by this is if you say I have a mental illness, and a lot of people out there have mental illnesses, like
Hmm.
people have physical things that are wrong with them, that's okay. But people can
Yeah.
also have mental illnesses, and that's still okay. But everyone hears that word or those two words and immediately puts people into this bucket of you're crazy, you're dangerous, you're hopeless, you're a
Yeah.
psycho, which is obviously irrational, but that's how our brains work. And
Yeah.
to be honest, like I was saying, that was the stigma that I had when I
Hmm.
started therapy, felt a lot of shame around it, blah, blah, blah. But long story short, I believe that the stigma is out there. And this is one of the largest reasons people resist going to therapy in the first place. And
Yeah.
that's why people contract when they hear those words, mental health.
Hmm. Hmm.
So right now, Ellie, I want you to talk to those people that think that they would benefit from therapy but are not going to therapy for those reasons I just stated,
Yeah.
or even people that haven't considered therapy but have that negative stigma around it. What
Hmm.
would you say to those people listening right now?
So you made so many good points, and thank you for watching my videos. I really appreciate that. Um, First off, I want to say that I go to therapy myself.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I struggle with anxiety. I've had anxiety all my life. Never wanted
Mm-hmm.
to admit the fact that I had anxiety. I
Mm-hmm.
am a normal functioning, and I hate the word normal because no one's normal, but I'm a regular functioning human being who has a family, who has a job, and I still struggle with anxiety. It doesn't mean I'm crazy, doesn't mean I can't have a real life.
Mm-hmm.
But I felt shame because I'm a therapist. What the heck's wrong with me? I know the tricks. I know
Mm-hmm.
the tools. How come I can't get this under control?
Mm-hmm.
How dare I go to therapy? But it's okay. And I love who I am now going to a therapist. And I think this idea of generalizing mental health, I think the movies and I think a lot of misconception in the world, like One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, is the movie for like psych units. And people think that that's what it looks like all the time. I work in a psych unit. It doesn't look like that.
Mm-hmm.
But mental illness is not that you're not crazy just because you're in therapy. The clinic I work in Queens, New York, has a waiting list of hundreds of people, which shows you that a lot of people are coming to therapy and a lot of them are not severely mentally ill.
Yeah.
They are run-of-the-mill people who are struggling with life,
Mm-hmm.
whether it's parenting, whether it's spouse issues, whether it's anxiety, depression, relationships, self-esteem, self-confidence, any of those small things that bother most people in their lives are coming to therapy.
Mm-hmm.
It's not usually the people who are the classic psychotic people like schizophrenia and bipolar. They still come to therapy, but it's not as rampant with that as you think in a therapist's office.
Mm-hmm.
So many people are coming to therapy, and it's so prominent nowadays. But still, for some reason, people think when they look at you and you say, like you said, mental illness, they go, oh, what's wrong with them?
Yeah.
They must be, oh my gosh, they're crazy.
Yeah.
No. You know how many friends I have that have anxiety or depression? How many people I know in this world?
Yeah.
It's so generalized. It's so okay. So
Mm-hmm.
it's just try it. And also, I think the biggest thing is the fit with a therapist.
Mm-hmm.
You have
Oh,
to be very careful.
yeah, that's absolutely something I want to talk about later on in the show because that is a
Yeah.
huge part of your therapy experience.
But to answer your question as short and as long as I could, is that there is a huge stigma. And the reason is because we make an association of something negative and wrong about ourselves when in truth, sometimes we just need extra help in anything we do. If our house is crazy unorganized,
Mm-hmm.
people hire an organizer
Mm-hmm.
because they need external help. No one goes, "Oh, what's wrong with you? You can't do it yourself."
Mm-hmm.
If you can't clean your house because you're busy with life and you hire a cleaning crew, nothing's wrong with you. If you have a medical issue, you get a doctor and you get medication. Why is that? That's so accepted.
Yeah.
No one goes, "Oh, you have a chronic illness? What the hell's wrong with you?" No one
Mm-hmm.
does that.
Mm-hmm.
So if you need a little extra help with mental health, that's part of life.
I love that. And I also love, as challenging as this time is, I think we're awakening to it, right? Like we're
We
awakening
are.
to
We
the
are.
whole mental illness is not a stigma. Like everybody has mental health. And I'm really excited for our future for that reason.
I am also.
So, what would you say? Because really, like that stigma is a limiting belief. It's this box that we're putting ourselves in.
Yeah.
How do you suggest that we break those walls down? Is it exposing ourselves to
Hmm.
therapy or to more conversations about mental health? What is your
I think it's a combination of things. I really
yeah,
think it is about doing what we're doing right now,
yeah,
having people talk about it, different platforms, different arenas,
yeah.
different settings, different cultures, because there are a lot of studies on different cultures' view on and religions on therapy. Some people have this culture, they're brought up that everything stays within the family. How dare you talk to someone not in the family?
Mhm.
So that culture could create this, well, I can't talk to you, you're not in my culture.
Mhm.
There are some religions that that don't like the fact that you're talking to other people. You should talk to your whatever religious head about the
Mm-hmm.
issues. And I think that the more conversations we have, that people just like you and where you come from and who you are going to therapists for similar issues, that you're not alone and that you're not this weirdo outcast psychiatric patient.
Yeah.
I think it creates some comfort that you feel going into a therapy office and finding the right therapist and looking for the right therapist.
Yeah. I love that feeling because when I was in the beginning stages of my therapy journey and I was
Hmm.
feeling a lot of shame and feeling alone, and I remember listening to a podcast episode about a woman expressing like her journey with therapy, and
Yeah.
it was a woman that I never would have expected to go into therapy. You
Hmm.
know, that person that seems like she has everything pulled together, and
Yep.
knowing that she's okay still, she's not
Hmm.
breaking down and losing control, and she's in therapy, it
Yeah.
brought this sense of immense relief over me. I was like, oh my gosh, like you're right, I'm not alone. I Everybody needs
Hmm.
help in some aspect of their life, and that's why I'm so excited. I keep saying I'm so
Yeah.
excited to get this episode out there because I
It's
know a
so
lot of
important.
people. It is so important. It is so
I
important.
I was in Soho with my wife this week, and we were walking around, and I saw a basketball player. His name is Kevin Love,
Mm-hmm. Oh
and
my gosh.
I wanted to run. Yeah, I wanted to run over there and say hello, for not just because he's a basketball player and I love sports, but because he did something and opened a door in the NBA that most people have not. He spoke about his struggles with anxiety. He
Hmm.
missed a lot of games one season because he was having panic attacks,
Hmm.
and he talks a lot about how it helped him. Michael Phelps started opening up that he was going to therapy. Yes, celebrities have a huge platform and famous people have a huge platform to be able to generalize and make it more comfortable, that if they're the people who have all the money and the fame and the fortune, and it looks like on the outside that they have everything together.
Hmm.
Kevin Love is a good looking dude. He dresses nicely. He plays basketball. He loves what he does. He makes a nice salary. Even him is having struggles. I wanted to thank him, to say, like, thank you for doing that, because it's so important, one, for men to know,
Yeah.
and two, for people to know that just because you look like you have it all together doesn't mean you
Yeah.
can't get help.
Yeah. That's so powerful.
I didn't get a chance to, because I didn't want to run after him and get arrested, because he was farther away. So I didn't want to be like Kevin and like totally get in trouble. So I kept it to myself. But next time I see him or I get a chance, I'll try to.
Yeah. New York's actually a pretty small place, so you might run into him again.
Or I'm just gonna hang around Soho and hope that I see him.
Exactly. Exactly. That's awesome. Ellie, if you don't mind sharing with us, can you tell us about a time, take us back to a time in your life where you felt really down or you were really being challenged by something, whether it was as a child with your ADHD or as a grown adult with anxiety and panic attacks? It's a very hopeless, scary feeling to be in. I want to talk
Yeah.
about how therapy can benefit our lives. So, why don't you tell us about a time in your life where you really needed therapy and how it helped you?
So I have two moments that I can think of that really opened my eyes to the need to talk to someone that wasn't family or friends,
Mm-hmm.
who was someone objective. That is the key
Mm-hmm.
to therapy. It is someone objective in your life
Yeah.
who literally is looking from an other perspective, on top or on the side, being able to view things that you just can't see because you are in it. You're
Mm-hmm.
in it and you're involved. You're too blinded by that. So a month after my baby was born, she's 8 months old now.
She's
She's
so cute,
beautiful,
by the
wonderful.
way.
She's so adorable. I can't get enough of her. I love her to pieces, but
Oh.
she scared the living daylights out of me
Yeah.
because of, my wife and I went through infertility. There was so
Mm-hmm.
much like eggs in a basket, not no pun intended, but
Mm-hmm.
um, for her
Mm-hmm.
to live and to be our baby, because we couldn't do it on our own.
Mm-hmm.
So when she was born, she had a cord wrapped around her neck. She almost died. It was very scary.
Mm-hmm.
The first month, I could not sleep. I lost 10, 15 pounds. I wasn't
Mm-hmm.
eating. I wasn't sleeping. I looked sickly because I was so worried. I kept
Oh.
checking on her, making sure she was alive. Every noise in the middle of the night was making me freaked out.
Mm-hmm.
And I had a moment where in the middle of the night at 2 o'clock, I woke up. I felt like half of my body was numb. I thought I was dying. I thought I was having a stroke.
Mm-hmm.
In the end, I was having a panic attack.
Mm-hmm.
It was the lowest. I've ever felt. That week of my life was the lowest I've ever felt. I
Mm-hmm.
felt ashamed. I felt embarrassed. I felt like a failure because I couldn't get myself together on my own.
Mm-hmm.
And there was points in the days where I couldn't even sit by myself in a calm way. I was so restless. I was pulling at my hair. I couldn't. It was
Mm-hmm.
so hard.
Mm-hmm.
And I looked at my wife with tears in my eyes and I said to her, I need help.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I need help. Something is wrong.
Mm-hmm.
And I went to a psychiatrist. I spoke to them about medication options. And in the end, I went and I saw a therapist who I happen to still see, who I love and is great, and helped me gain perspective on something that I knew deep down but couldn't see until he opened that that door. Just
Mm-hmm.
a little bit at a time. And that's what therapy is. My goal as a therapist is never rip someone open and make them feel terrible. It's never making them causing them to cry. It's never making them angry or sad or
Mm-hmm.
happy. It's all about being there to support them to find what they most of them know it on the inside. You know it. You're born with it. You know you better than I know you.
Mm-hmm.
But it's about helping you see that truth from an objective person. And I value therapy so much since I am a therapist. I think it's important. But
Mm-hmm.
someone who goes to therapy, it really has helped me just gain perspective
Mm-hmm.
on what I was going through
Mm-hmm.
and help me gain tools on how not to go through that again. And when I do, what to do.
That's great. If there is
Yeah.
one word to describe therapy, it is objective. It's
Yeah.
so true. We all need that, and we get so
Yeah.
blinded by that.
Yeah.
You also touched on something where therapy, it takes a long time, right? And you mentioned it takes years of unpacking your whole life. And one of the first things out of my therapist's mouth during my first session was she said, "This is going to take a long time." And I know that. But me, the achiever that I am, was like, if we're not going to get results in 24 hours, should I even be
I'm
wasting
sorry.
my time with you?
Yeah. No, I hear that.
And I think we live in this instant gratification society where I'm not the only one that thinks that way.
Not at all.
So let's give our listeners some perspective, shall we? The X
Yeah.
amount of years or months that you've been in therapy, let's look back, and can you tell me how therapy has helped you when you didn't even realize it in the moment, but now looking back 8 months, 7 months
Mhm.
later, how has it helped you in your life?
Yeah, and I'll give it also perspective of being a therapist and working with people. I've worked
Please.
with some
Yeah.
people right now for a year and a half.
Mm-hmm.
And in the beginning, they were so closed off to even sharing that it took about 4 or 5 months to break through the BS that they were giving me to protect themselves, the fear of being vulnerable with a random stranger,
Mm-hmm.
um, being true to what they were there for or what they were coming to. It's a scary process.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, therapy is objective, but it's also extremely vulnerable and raw
Mm-hmm.
because as a therapist, I have the ability to sit there and be with people at their greatest moments, at their lowest moments, at their most vulnerable moments. I'm a stranger. I'm not their family. I'm not their friends.
Mm-hmm.
But it takes time to get to that point. And some people are like that right away. They open and they're ready. And sometimes it's not so healthy. That's also
Mm-hmm.
a red flag for me because it means they're too comfortable sharing everything.
Yeah.
So I also help them rein that in a little bit. But for myself, where I was 7 months ago with the anxiety and the fear and the worry, the therapist that I went to has helped me really just be calm with who I am and unpack some things of why I might have had anxiety at that point.
Mm-hmm.
Things that I would have never thought about, things that he made connections to, the connecting the dots that because I was so involved from my childhood till today that I can't see those dots.
Mm-hmm.
Whether it's um, parents, the way they raised me, situations with my spouse, whether it's the way I grew up as a childhood and my interactions with friends and family, experiences that I had when I was in summer camp. Who knows?
Mm-hmm.
we all are so complex as humans. We have so many memories and so many experiences that make us who we are
Mm-hmm.
right now in that
Mm-hmm.
moment, in that room with that therapist, that the therapist is able to see these dots and be from that perspective of, oh, because X, Y, and Z happened. Not that they know for sure, but it could be that that's why you had a panic attack because this led to that, which made you feel a certain way, which gave you perspective to view this a certain way.
Yeah.
And you go, oh, oh, I never connected those things.
Mm-hmm.
That sounds interesting. And then you talk about it and you delve into it more, but it takes time to get there because the therapist has to learn about you
Mm-hmm.
first and who you are
Mm-hmm.
before they can help you to who you want to be.
Yeah, yeah. And then they give you the tools where if you're in a situation like that, that could spark up
Hmm.
anxiety again.
Yeah.
You don't have to, every time you're exposed to that certain situation or experience, you don't have to experience anxiety. And that's something that I'm trying to work through right now is because I had immense anxiety and panic attacks in this exact situation, doesn't mean when I'm in that situation again, it's
Yeah.
going to happen. And
100%.
that's something that I'm still trying to work through. But I mean, therapy is it's so healthy for you in that regard and connecting those dots, like you said.
And one of the things that you mentioned before that is so true, which I think some people are afraid of, and why people kind of stay away from therapy, is it's not this when you have a medical issue and they know the cause, they go here, take a pill, or here,
Mm-hmm.
get a surgery, and ta-da,
Mm-hmm.
the issue is hopefully gone.
Yeah.
It is not a long term. Let's do this for a year or two and see what happens. Um, it is very short term and very instant gratification. It is here's a pill and now your cholesterol is lower. Here's a
Mm-hmm.
pill and now you don't have stomach problems. It's great. It's wonderful. It's beautiful that we have that in the medical world that we're able to solve those problems. But in the psychiatric world, one, pills and medication are helpful when needed, and
Mm-hmm.
sometimes you have to go through a trial and error to find the right medication that fits your DNA, blood type, body type,
Mm-hmm.
and brain structure.
Mm-hmm.
And then on top of that, therapy takes time.
Mm-hmm.
So people go, they start. I've had clients who started for like 2 months. They go, "How come I haven't changed yet? I'm leaving," and they leave. They don't come back. What they don't realize is that we haven't even got to know each other in 2 months. We see each other, let's say, once a week, once every other week. 2 months is nothing.
Do you have, I'm going to go off book for a second. I'm just
Go for a
curious.
book.
Do you have advice on how to go about, is there like a good way to have to start a therapy session? Because I'm a talker, so like I start my therapy sessions like instantly just like talking about what I've been working on and my
Hmm.
week. But
Hmm.
is there a different way to go about it? Like, should us as the client start rapidly talking? Because I feel like my poor therapist doesn't get anything in. And I don't know if I should give her a chance to speak first so she can tell me her findings and her learnings about me. I don't know. I don't know if I'm doing this right,
So first of
Ellie.
all, first of all, I gotta tell you, I would love to have you as a client because sometimes you break teeth on trying to get clients to talk. So the
Yeah.
fact that you are a talker helps a lot. I'm saying that
Mm-hmm.
from a therapist perspective, it helps so much because there are some clients that have so much in them, but it's so hard to get them to talk and they don't want to talk. So you're literally like pulling and trying and asking and delving and poking and prodding to just get anything. And they just are so stoic and don't say a word. And you're just like inside going, please tell me. Like I see it.
Yeah.
And there are clients like you that you're like, oh, finally, someone who talks. But then you also have clients. I have like 3 clients that I work with now, um, who talk so much that as a therapist, I'm sure your therapist does a great job, but there are some clients that I have that do not let me talk whatsoever. And when I do talk, they then continue to talk over me.
Hmm.
Um, so there needs to, it's a dance. It's a very, very special dance.
Mm-hmm.
You talking is so important because that's what you're there for. You're there to talk out what you're working on, how you're feeling, what you're going through, your experiences, how you're working on what the therapist might have suggested that week or every other week, whatever it is. But it's also about letting the therapist chime in and when they talk to listen. And there is no, I hate saying this, there is no one formula because each person is different depending on the issue.
Mm-hmm.
If a client starts telling you something about something very intense like suicide or something like safety issue, as a therapist, you need to jump in and be very aggressive with your therapy
Mm-hmm.
for safety issues. But if it's someone just talking, my therapist, if he's listening, I'm not going to say his name, but my therapist sometimes says to me, he says, "Is that how you wanted to spend your therapy today?" At the end, when I'm just talking,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm a talker also, and I said, "Yeah, actually, I just needed to get that because I haven't seen you, whether it's because of vacation, I haven't seen you in a month or so. I
Mm-hmm.
just wanted to get you up to speed to where I was." He goes, "Okay, if you're happy with where that was, I'm okay with that.
Okay.
But if I was just talking and rambling on to protect myself from actually talking about real things,"
Mm-hmm.
he said, "then I wouldn't like that because we need to talk about real things. We're not here just to chit chat and have a good time."
Mm-hmm.
So it depends on the person, but being a talker is great for therapy. From a therapist perspective, it's a dream.
Good, good. Okay, thank you for that because I literally go in with like notes on my phone. I'm like, all right, Tina, let's talk about this. I was like,
That's beautiful.
but I don't know if I'm leaving enough space for grace and just for flow for it to just naturally
Maybe
happen.
this might be hard for you to do. Maybe ask her.
Yeah.
Ask her. Because it is a conversation, it is a relationship. So what I always tell my clients is to be transparent, open with me. If I'm doing something wrong or if they feel they're doing something wrong, bring it up. So a great
Mm-hmm.
question is to ask her, "Hey, is my talking too much for you? Is it overwhelming? Do you feel like that?" Because then if it gives her the door to actually talk to you about it,
Mm-hmm.
versus if she brought it up, it might be a slap in your face. But if
Mm-hmm.
you bring it up, it's you being concerned and then her being let into that conversation.
Okay. Oh, thank you so much. It's very
No problem. That's
great
what I'm here
advice,
for.
Ellie. All right. Let's talk about finding the right therapist for you. Like going to therapy in general is very intimidating, but having
Hmm.
that supportive therapist can alleviate so much stress and anxiety right off the bat. So, how do you know that a therapist is right for you? Because being very new to this therapy journey, I'm realizing that it's
Hmm.
actually quite common for people to go through a few therapists before they
Yeah.
find one that's a right fit for them. But then the questions come to my mind of, well, are you A, giving them a chance?
Hmm.
B, what is the right? I'm very formulaic, which can be a
Yeah.
good and a bad thing. So I'm thinking, okay, how many months do I need before considering another therapist if that is the
Yeah.
case? Just how do you know that A, you've given your current therapist enough time,
Hmm.
and B, that she's right for you or he's right for you?
So that's a great question. I get that question so often when I'm either doing podcasts or talking to friends or people who are just like, "Oh, you're a therapist. Let me ask you questions."
Mm-hmm.
Um, I get that a lot. How do you know? So, as humans, we have a radar. We're built in with comfortability radar.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if there's a term for it, but it's us being able to sit with someone and get a good vibe.
Mm-hmm.
We can have a gut feeling. We can feel that something is either good or bad. If you get the bad feeling, you should switch because that means that something's really innately wrong with whatever the relationship is. And we have all had that feeling once or twice in our life, maybe more, depending on our past. But we all get that something feels wrong. But if something feels good or it feels okay, I would give it about a month or two
Mm-hmm.
just to try to feel out the person. It depends on how often you're going, once, twice a week, once a month, twice a month, whatever your formula is for your therapy. But give
Mm-hmm.
it time enough where you're seeing them at least 4 to 6 times, where you can kind of get a feel for them because they're getting a feel for you as well.
Mm-hmm.
And it is a relationship and it takes time to learn that vibe, that what's the word I'm looking for? Chemistry.
Mm-hmm.
It is a chemistry. And it's not a problem to switch. For example, I had a client who was working with me for 6 months and we had great chemistry together. And then she called me one day and said, "You know what, Ellie? I have some issues that I really want to work with you, but I don't feel comfortable because you're a male. I really need to work with a female."
Mm-hmm.
Great.
Mm-hmm.
If you feel that, if that's what you need and that's what's going to help you get to whatever point you want to, good for you. You realize that.
Mm-hmm.
But sometimes some people who've had trauma in the past, whether it's sexual trauma, physical trauma, they like to work with someone who's the same gender to get
Mm-hmm.
a different perspective from that, or the opposite because it triggers them. That you have to take that into account. Gender is a huge thing. I'm okay with male or female, it doesn't bother me. But some people would only want to work with a female. Some people don't want to work with certain races or religions because of their experiences.
Mm-hmm.
I worked with a guy who's a gay man who comes from a Jewish background,
Mm-hmm.
and he was afraid to work with me because of his family background with being gay. He didn't have a good experience with how they reacted and was worried that when he walked into the office with me,
Mm-hmm.
that I would be the same. I'm not like that. I embrace him with open arms, and I think he's great. And it doesn't matter to me what his sexual preference is. I'm not there
Mm-hmm.
for that. My
Mm-hmm.
religious perspective doesn't matter there. It's about you and being
Yeah.
objective. But he brought that in. He was worried. So he was very intimidated or worried and afraid of how the therapy would go. So you have to know who you are.
Mm-hmm.
And the thing I tell everyone, make sure your insurance covers it. Make sure you can afford it.
Oh my goodness.
Because if you can't afford it, it's not worth going broke, or it's not worth
It's true.
not eating or having clothes. There are plenty of therapists in this world today that you can find someone that's in your budget.
Yeah.
Don't go broke. It's not worth it.
And online therapy is becoming so
Yeah,
popular now as well.
it is. It is. Telehealth is very big because people have a crazy life and
Mm-hmm.
they feel they need it. Personally, I think that the telehealth that is the best is Skype or video
Yeah.
because you can see the person's body language. If you do texting or phone calls, it's very different. You can be very fake through texting. You can totally be lying through your teeth and no one would know.
Mm-hmm.
But I think in-person therapy is the best option if you can. But it is about feel. We know it. We know it. And it's not a breakup like a relationship that you might hurt someone's feelings. It is business. It is
Mm-hmm.
your health. So
Mm-hmm.
if you don't feel it's right, keep looking. Keep looking. And when you feel that when you find that right person, it is so worth it. All
Yeah.
the changes that you made to find that person.
That's great. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
I know that
No problem.
probably cleared up a lot of questions for some people listening.
I hope
Thank
so.
you. Thank you so much. So, I want to talk about something that instantly, like just in general, like when we connected over Instagram, I was like, he seems like a great man. Like, of course, I want to talk to him and get to know him. But one of the other things that really I don't know, a chord with me was that you were on the Kelly Clarkson show. I mean, that was something that you, you instantly started off with in your DM message. And I'm like,
Yeah.
that is so freaking cool. First of all, congratulations that you got
Thank
that
you.
opportunity. Why don't you unpack that a little bit for us? How did that opportunity present itself to you?
No idea. It was, if Kelly, if you're listening, I'm more than happy to come back. Um, she, her team reached out to me because I'm a therapist and a new dad, and they were running a segment for new dads, and they were featuring someone who who was has a huge account as a father. His name is Chronicles of a Daddy, and they were
Mm-hmm.
featuring him and wanted people who either commented on his post or are new dads who follow him um, to surprise him and talk about being a new dad.
Hmm.
So I was brought on and featured to help show him what the impact he had on new dads, and they really liked the fact that I was a therapist, and to give that perspective as
Yeah.
the anxiety and stress of being a new dad from a therapist perspective as well.
Yeah. Wow. That is so cool. So where were
I thought it was
you?
fake. I thought
I'm
it was fake.
sure. I'm sure.
I was at work. I got a Instagram message, a LinkedIn message, a phone call through my website,
Oh,
an email through my
wow.
website from a producer I'll call her Bob,
Uh-huh.
um, who said like, "Hi, we love your page, we love this, we love your message, we loved having the Kelly Clarkson show," and said, "Call me now." I was like, "What?" So I called them, and the first thing I said was, "Is this real?" Like, yes. I said, "How do I know?" So she said, "I'll send you a picture of my badge
Huh.
from with in my office," and she
Mm-hmm.
did, and I was okay. Let's talk. And then that week they flew me out over one night. I landed like a Thursday morning. I was in the filming for about 5 hours. I literally filmed for 2 minutes,
Mm-hmm.
um, got back on a plane and landed and went back to work the next day.
Wow. I was gonna say, if she was reaching out to you on multiple platforms, it seemed like it was a quick turnaround. And usually with that stuff,
Yeah,
it
it was
seems like it
very fast.
is. Yeah.
It was very fast. It was very fast. And I said to them, I don't know. I have clients. I have to be careful. I can't just move people around in their schedule. She
Mhm.
said to me, she goes, Ellie, if you don't do this, this is not going to happen. And I said, I don't get why, but okay. So
Yeah.
I did the best. I said, give me a few hours, and I got back to him, and it was able to work out. My wife, like, you have to go. I said,
Mhm.
okay, you're going to be okay with the baby. She was like 3 months old at the time. She's like, yes, it's only 24 hours. Go, go, go. And it
Oh,
was, and my wife is from LA, so I was able to see my in-laws
that's
for
so
like
cool.
20 minutes, and
Hmm.
it was a. I wouldn't be against that kind of lifestyle, is what I'm saying. It
Just
was,
like the living in California lifestyle.
oh, that too. But the driving around, someone driving you around, the hair and makeup.
Yes.
It was nice. It was
Yes.
wonderful.
I'm glad you got
I'm
that
not against it.
experience. Sounds
Yeah.
like a wonderful time. What were the emotions the day of that you were going through?
I was so worried. So I have a chronic illness called Crohn's. So
Mm-hmm.
it's like an intestinal issue. So I was
Mm-hmm.
so worried that my anxiety was going to be so ramped up, my Crohn's was going to act up. I was so worried beforehand. But the funny thing is when I got on the plane to there, I was in this weird, very like a lot of clarity and calm. And I landed and I got picked up and I went to the hotel. I slept for a couple hours, got to the studio. I felt like I was in my element.
Mm-hmm.
I can't explain it more than that. I felt totally at home. Um, the cameras didn't bother me. The celebrities didn't like nothing like that. Wasn't sitting there going, "Oh my gosh, it's so and so. Oh my goodness," addressing her by name. Like I didn't sit there. Of course, I loved it and I was really
Mm-hmm.
enjoying the process.
Mm-hmm.
I wasn't nervous at all. And the funny thing is that there was another person that I was filming with who had all this confidence and swag, and he was talking a big game. When we were about to walk on, he was freaking out. And the person, the producer looked at me and she said, Ellie, are you okay? And I said, yeah, I'm great.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And she looked at me, she goes, I knew you were the right person.
Oh.
But like, I felt so comfortable, but I built up this anxiety in my head of being so worried about what could be, what if,
Yep.
what
Mm-hmm.
happens. I psyched myself up so much that when I finally got there, I was so calm. It was this very out of body experience. In the flight home, I was very emotional regarding being thankful, being grateful.
Mm-hmm.
Who gets this opportunity? Even if it doesn't happen again in the rest of my life, it is a wonderful, cool opportunity. Um, it was this very amazing experience. Working on a blog about it, but it was a very amazing experience.
That's great. Wonderful. I can't wait to read that blog post. Now,
And she's
playback.
very nice.
I was going to say, playback for me the exact moment that you met Kelly Clarkson. What was it all like?
So I walked on stage, and I'm 6'2", so I'm a kind of big guy.
Mm-hmm.
She's not a very tall person,
Yeah.
so she's a big hugger. So
Oh.
so we didn't get introduced to come on. We just magically appeared on the couch on TV.
Okay.
So there was an in between stage, and she gave me a big hug, and she whispered in my ear. She goes, "Thank you so much for moving your clients for me. That meant so much."
Oh my
Like she
gosh.
knew. I'm sure her producers told her the whole
Yeah.
drama, but the fact that she was so personable,
Oh my
and then
goodness.
we were sitting on the stage before the shooting, and the guy to my left, Chronicles of a Daddy, is 6'2". The guy to my right is 6 feet. We're big dudes, and we're trying to get comfortable on this very skinny, tiny couch, and we're like jostling for position and just like laughing and trying to not spread our legs but be comfortable. And she looks at us and goes, "Are you guys okay?" And Muhammad, the guy, said, "Yeah, we're just big people." She looks at the crowd and says, "Can you believe they're pushing it in my face that they're big people? I'm so tiny. I got no legs over here." Like it was just,
Oh.
she was just comfortable. She was loving life. She's really genuinely a really nice person.
Yeah.
It's not fake at all. She
Yeah.
is through and through a Southern girl who is nice and sweet.
Oh my God, that's amazing. I mean, that's the vibe I've
Yeah.
always gotten from Kelly Clarkson, but hearing it firsthand from your experience, it affirms it for me even more. Oh, that's so
And
powerful.
that's why they made her the show. When she was doing the voice, they came
Yeah.
to her and said, "We love your vibe. We need to create a show." She's like, "Okay."
Oh, that was no surprise for me there because she has
Yeah.
so much personality. Like, she seems the realest out of all of the other judges on The Voice.
She's very real.
Oh, I'm so glad you got that experience, Ellie. That is so
Yeah.
cool.
Yeah, it was wonderful.
So cool. All right. So, as we wrap up our show today, I want to talk about elevation. which is your company that you started up. Why don't you give us a little context around what Elevation is, first of all, and how it
Mhm.
came to be?
Thank you so much for bringing up the company. I don't even know what to call it, but it's an idea that I had for a couple of years that because of what you said earlier, that mental health is such a stigmatized issue, I'm trying to create a vibe and a place for people to find mental health tips and tools and a person, myself, who is genuinely caring about someone and everyone and helping mental health be relatable
Mm-hmm.
and and being able to connect to it in a way that isn't scary, that isn't so academic that it's over your head and so research based that you can't understand a word it's saying,
Mm-hmm.
but something that is geared towards you, geared towards the person. So I create Elevation as a way to connect to people, to help people when they're struggling with relationships, whether it's with confidence or public speaking, which is confidence issues, or anything they're going through in their life. It is not therapy, it is more coaching. It will be therapy soon because my licensure is going to be able to do that, to be able to practice on my own. So stay tuned in the next 6 to 8 months. But
Exciting.
it is something that I do speaking. I try to do mental health awareness. Now I'm talking about parenting and fatherhood, just creating a platform for inspiration and motivations in people's lives to help them feel a little more love and care in their life.
That's beautiful. Thank you for creating that and sharing that with the world.
Trying the best, trying to do,
Where can people
trying.
find Elevation and find you if they want to connect with you on social?
So I have a Facebook page called Elevation. It's Elivation. If you get it, it's my name.
Mm-hmm.
And I have an Instagram account, elevation_LMSW. I have a website, elevation.org, because .com was taken. And just the truth. And anytime, anywhere, reach out. My cell phone, my emergency like work phone numbers on there. My email's on there. Please don't be shy if you want me to speak at your next event, you want to do coaching or something like that, please reach out. I'm more than happy to work with you and see how I can help you on your journey.
It's wonderful. This has been one of my favorite conversations on the show. And
This has been great. You're
it's been
wonderful. Your vibe
great.
is great.
Aw, thank you so much. So is yours. I feel a genuine connection with you. It's very easy.
Thank you. Thank you.
Before you go, I have to ask you a question I ask all of my guests is how
Sure.
do you, Ellie, cultivate curiosity in your life every day?
So, something that I value about myself is I am, if anyone's listening knows me, I'm a lot childish. I'm not a little childish at all. I have a very childish soul. So, I'm always looking and in wonder. Like, I love Disneyland because it's just like my eyes are like, oh, look at that. Like,
Mm-hmm.
I love things. I love searching for how things work, what things are made of. I love reading those things. It is something that I am so passionate about because I look at my daughter and I look at my nieces and nephews when they were growing up, that childish purity and innocence of looking at something and being so amazed at nature and animals and how things are in this world is something that I value, that is so deep inside of me that I try to continue that hopefully till I'm in my hundreds, to have that childish way of myself. And it's something that I want to embody and hopefully pass on to my family.
That's beautiful. Ellie, thank you
Yeah.
so much for your time today.
Thank you so much for having me.